In a chaotic world filled with opinions, distractions, and emotional noise, the ability to think clearly has become a rare superpower. But long before modern talk of critical thinking and mental clarity, the Stoics were already practicing it as a daily discipline. For them, thinking sharply wasn't just about intelligence. It was about mastering the mind, separating what is from what merely seems, and responding to life with reason rather than reaction. Epictetus reminded his students, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them." That single insight reveals the Stoic path to clarity. It's not about having all the answers, but about asking the right questions. It's about pausing before judging, observing before acting, and always checking if your mind is being led by logic or by impulse. The Stoics believed that wisdom starts the moment you stop being led by noise and begin seeing with calm precision. 1. Focus on what you can control. The foundation of clear and sharp thinking. In a world overflowing with uncertainty, distractions, and chaos, one of the most powerful mental strategies we can adopt is surprisingly simple. Focus only on what you can control. This idea isn't new. It was a cornerstone of ancient Stoic philosophy, particularly emphasized by Epictetus. In his Enchiridion, he wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." To the untrained mind, this distinction may seem trivial, but to the Stoic, it is everything. It's the line that separates sanity from despair, clarity from confusion, strength from helplessness. We waste an incredible amount of mental energy worrying about things that are completely outside our influence. What others think of us, how people behave, global politics, unexpected life events, even the past. This clutter clouds our judgment and weakens our thinking. When you try to control the uncontrollable, frustration is guaranteed. But when you narrow your attention to what is truly yours, your choices, your actions, your attitude, you free your mind to operate at its highest level. Focusing on what you can control brings several immediate benefits. First, it sharpens decision-making. When you're not preoccupied with external outcomes or other people's reactions, you can think more clearly about what you need to do. Your thoughts become purposeful, grounded, and solution-oriented. You stop spiraling in what-ifs and start focusing on what now. Second, it builds emotional resilience. You begin to accept that you are not the master of external events, but you are the master of your response. When setbacks come, as they inevitably will, you don't panic or freeze. You pause. You reflect. And then you act from a place of stability rather than fear. Third, it cultivates inner peace. Not a peace that comes from everything going your way, but a deeper kind. The peace that comes from knowing you're doing your best, regardless of the outcome. It's the confidence of a person who has clarity about where their responsibility begins and ends. Of course, this practice isn't easy. In a hyper-connected digital world, we are constantly exposed to global tragedies, political conflicts, and personal comparison. The urge to fix, react, or worry about everything is overwhelming. But Stoicism doesn't ask you to stop caring. It asks you to care wisely. It invites you to stop being a slave to the uncontrollable, and instead to reclaim your mental sovereignty. When you wake up each morning, you can ask yourself, what is in my control today? Your thoughts? Yes. Your words? Yes. Your effort? Yes. Your integrity? Always. Everything else, people's opinions, market trends, the weather, the past, the future, those are not yours to command. They are wind and tide. And like a skilled sailor, your job is not to control the sea, but to steer your ship with clarity and grace. Reflection. Look at the last thing that stressed you out. Was it truly under your control, or did your mind try to fix something it could never touch? The Stoics offer a mental discipline that is deeply liberating. Let go of what you can't control and give your best to what you can. Not only will your thinking become sharper, but your life will become calmer, more intentional, and more powerful. The wisest minds do not try to control the world. They master themselves. That's where clear thinking begins, and that's where your greatest strength lies. 2. Practicing misfortune. Building mental clarity through adversity. One of the most misunderstood ideas in Stoic philosophy is the practice of mentally preparing for misfortune. To the modern mind, this might seem pessimistic or even unnecessary. Why dwell on things going wrong? But to the Stoics, this mental exercise wasn't about negativity. It was about freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from illusion, and above all, freedom to think clearly, even in the darkest moments. Seneca, the Roman Stoic and statesman, called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. He advised that wise individuals should routinely imagine the worst-case scenario: poverty, sickness, exile, public disgrace, even death. Not because these outcomes were inevitable, but because confronting them beforehand stripped them of their power to paralyze us. Think about it. Much of our anxiety doesn't come from what is, but from what might be. Our mind, left untrained, spins into fear when faced with uncertainty. It fills in the blanks with disaster. And when challenges eventually appear, as they always do, we are shocked, unprepared, and mentally scattered. But what if you had already rehearsed adversity in your mind? What if, when life struck you with a heavy hand, you could say, "Ah, I've seen this before." Not because you're cold or robotic, but because you've trained your mind not to be surprised. That's what practicing misfortune does. It doesn't make you numb. It makes you ready. This practice isn't just about visualizing misfortune. It can also be lived. Seneca used to sleep on hard ground, wear rough clothing, and eat meager food once in a while, even though he was wealthy. Why? To remind himself that he could endure discomfort. That luxury was not a necessity. That his peace didn't depend on external comfort. Similarly, today's Stoic thinker might choose to go a day without their phone, to walk rather than drive, to say no to convenience just to prove they still have inner strength. What's the result of this practice? Clarity, calm, a deep sense of security. Not because life is easy, but because you are capable. When you make peace with worst-case scenarios, your mind becomes unshakable. You're no longer reacting from fear, but responding with purpose. You stop clinging to false hopes and start preparing for reality, however harsh it may be. That clarity transforms your decision-making. It reduces emotional noise, it sharpens your instincts, and it gives you the strength to act wisely under pressure. Some might argue that imagining misfortune only invites bad luck, but the Stoics believe the opposite, that to be unprepared is the real danger. The person who is trained for adversity is less likely to panic, to give in, or to break when things fall apart. Their strength is built not in comfort, but in conscious confrontation with discomfort. Reflection. Ask yourself, what am I afraid to lose? What situations have I mentally avoided because they're too uncomfortable to face? Now imagine them. Walk through the scenario in your mind. Ask, could I survive that? Could I find a way through? The answer might surprise you. Most of what we fear is survivable. What we lack is not strength, but clarity. And clarity begins with honest mental training. By practicing misfortune, you are not inviting pain. You are inoculating your mind against panic. You are giving yourself the mental armor to face whatever comes with grace and control. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation, it's wisdom, and it's the path to sharper, stronger, and clearer thinking, no matter what life throws your way. 3. Daily journaling, cultivating clarity through self-reflection. In a world of constant noise and distraction, one of the most underrated yet powerful tools for sharpening your mind is simple: writing in a journal. Not for an audience, not for likes or recognition, just for yourself. A quiet, honest dialogue between you and your own thoughts. The Stoics were early practitioners of daily journaling. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, used it not to record historical events or impress others, but to reflect on his character, correct his thinking, and remind himself of his principles. His private writings, later compiled into meditations, were never meant to be read by anyone else. Yet they remain one of the most important philosophical texts in human history. Why? Because they reflect a mind committed to clarity. Daily journaling is not about creating a perfect narrative of your life. It's about building mental discipline and learning to observe your own thoughts without distortion. When you write things down, your fears, your reactions, your decisions, your regrets, you begin to see patterns that are invisible in the rush of daily life. You catch emotional habits, faulty reasoning, and unconscious desires that quietly shape your actions. Think of journaling as a daily tune-up for your mind. You sit down even for 5 minutes and ask, what did I do well today? What did I do poorly? What can I improve? What am I avoiding? What truly matters to me right now? These are the kinds of questions that cut through mental fog and bring you closer to truth. This practice is not meant to be grand or poetic. In fact, the more honest and unfiltered it is, the better. It's a place to confess, not impress. A place to clarify, not justify. The goal is not to craft beautiful sentences, but to expose the inner workings of your mind and align them with your value. Over time, journaling does something remarkable. It teaches you how to think. It slows you down. It helps you see your emotions as temporary weather pattern, not absolute truths. It allows you to revisit your own behavior with gentleness and courage. And in doing so, it gives you the one thing every Stoic strives for: self-mastery. The beauty of this practice is its flexibility. You can journal in the morning to set your intentions, or at night to review the day. You can write 1 paragraph or 5 pages. What matters is the consistency. Because every time you pause to reflect, you are pushing back against the chaos of the world and saying, I choose to be aware. I choose to grow. I choose to understand myself. Reflection. Ask yourself, when was the last time you sat alone with your thoughts, without distraction, and simply wrote them down? If your mind feels crowded, confused, or anxious, maybe what it needs is not more information, but more reflection. Through journaling, you create space between the stimulus and your response. You begin to see not just what happened, but how you responded, and whether that response aligned with who you truly want to be. Journaling is not a diary. It's not indulgent. It's training. It's a quiet revolution inside your mind. A return to presence, perspective, and power. And over time, it sharpens your thinking more than any external advice or self-help video ever could. Because in the end, clarity doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. And journaling is how you learn to listen. 4. Mastering perception, the gateway to clearer thinking. In the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a radical yet empowering idea. It's not events themselves that disturb us, but our perception of them. This simple insight, echoed by Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, is one of the most transformative tools you can develop if you want to think more clearly and live more wisely. The power to control your perception isn't just a Stoic ideal. It's a superpower in the modern world. Every day, we encounter events we cannot control. Rude people, delays, failures, bad news, uncertainty. But what determines whether those experiences overwhelm us or empower us is not the event itself, it's the story we tell ourselves about it. Is that rejection a sign of your unworthiness or a redirection towards something better? Is that traffic jam a disaster or a moment to slow down and breathe? Perception is the filter through which we experience life, and most of us move through the world with dirty lenses, clouded by fear, ego, expectations, and old wounds. As a result, we react instead of respond, panic instead of pause. We jump to conclusions, make bad decisions, and carry emotional burdens that don't belong to us. But the Stoics teach us that perception is not fixed. It's a skill. It can be trained. You can learn to catch that first wave of emotion, anger, fear, frustration, and say, "Wait, let me look again." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that things are not inherently good or bad. It is we who assign value to them. A broken glass is just that, a broken object. A harsh comment is just sound. Only your judgment turns it into an insult, a crisis, or a catastrophe. This doesn't mean we ignore reality or suppress emotion. It means we take ownership of our interpretation. That's where freedom lives. Training your perception starts with awareness. The next time something provokes you, pause. Ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Is it helping me or hurting me? Is it grounded in truth or in assumption? By simply questioning your narrative, you create space. Space to think, space to choose, space to act with wisdom instead of impulse. Over time, this space becomes your strength. You stop being tossed around by everything that happens. You become steady, like a rock in the storm. This doesn't mean you become cold or detached. On the contrary, it means you become more fully present. You can experience reality clearly, without distortion, and respond with grace and intelligence. This practice is especially powerful in conflict. When someone offends you, can you step back and see their pain rather than taking it personally? When plans fall apart, can you choose curiosity over frustration? This mental reframing isn't denial. It's perception management. And it's what separates reactive minds from resilient ones. Reflection. How often do you mistake your perception for the truth? How often do you assume the worst, catastrophize the future, or attach meaning where there is none? Perception, if left unexamined, can become your prison. But once you realize it can be shaped, questioned, sharpened, and disciplined, it becomes your path to freedom. You may not control the weather of life, but you always control the window through which you view it. And through that window, you can choose to see clearly, act wisely, and live with peace. 5. Emotional stability, the foundation of rational thought. In a fast-moving world filled with pressure, provocation, and unpredictability, one of the most essential yet underrated strengths you can develop is emotional stability. The Stoics didn't seek to eliminate emotions altogether, they sought to master them. They understood that a turbulent mind cannot think clearly, and a reactive heart cannot make wise decisions. To the Stoics, emotional balance wasn't a luxury, it was a discipline, a daily practice of self-regulation and introspection that allowed them to face both fortune and misfortune with composure. Whether in triumph or tragedy, they aimed to remain at peace with themselves. Never numb, but never overwhelmed. When your emotions control you, your thinking becomes distorted. Anger clouds your judgment. Fear paralyzes your action. Jealousy, pride, and shame push you toward decisions you'll later regret. That's why Stoicism teaches that before you speak, act, or respond, you must first calm the waters within. Emotional stability doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel with awareness. You don't deny anger, you observe it. You don't suppress anxiety, you study its root. You don't lash out when hurt. You pause and examine the source of your pain. This space between stimulus and response is where your power lives. Marcus Aurelius, who led during plagues and wars, wrote extensively about the need to stay inwardly calm amidst outer chaos. He reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Seneca added that our suffering often comes not from the event itself, but from our interpretation and overreaction to it. One of the most effective strategies for cultivating emotional stability is mental rehearsal, a Stoic technique called premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evil. This involves imagining possible setbacks in advance, not to invite negativity, but to prepare your mind. When the inevitable challenges arrive, you're not shocked or shattered, you're ready. You've already rehearsed your calm. Another powerful practice is delayed response. When something triggers a strong emotion, don't act immediately. Count to 10, breathe, take a walk, let the wave pass. The Stoics taught that time is the ally of reason. What feels like a crisis in the heat of the moment often becomes insignificant with even a little distance. Also important, regularly checking your emotional health through journaling or silent reflection. Ask yourself, what is bothering me right now? Is it within my control? Am I feeding this feeling or facing it? Emotional stability comes from this ongoing self-dialogue, not from pretending everything is fine, but from dealing with your inner world honestly and with compassion. We often think of emotional control as something cold or robotic. But true Stoic calm is full of heart. It's the strength to feel deeply without becoming a prisoner of those feelings. It's the grace to respond thoughtfully when it would be easier to explode. It's the courage to remain kind when the world is harsh. And it's the discipline to maintain balance even when life feels unfair. Reflection. How often have your emotions hijacked your logic? How many arguments, bad decisions, or lost opportunities can be traced back to a moment when you let a feeling lead the way? Emotional stability isn't about suppressing your humanity. It's about mastering it. It's about being able to say, yes, I feel this, but I choose not to be ruled by it. When your emotions are grounded, your mind becomes sharp. You gain clarity, wisdom, and power, not over others, but over yourself. And that is the true Stoic victory. Not to be unfeeling, but to be unshaken. 6. Embracing change with grace. The Stoic path to inner peace. Change is inevitable. Seasons shift, people evolve. Relationships end. Careers take new turns. And life throws curveballs we never saw coming. Yet for many, change is a source of deep anxiety, resistance, and suffering. We cling to what's familiar, even when it no longer serves us, because it feels safer than the unknown. But the Stoics saw change differently. They viewed it not as a threat, but as a natural, even beautiful part of existence. Marcus Aurelius, writing as both a Roman emperor and a philosopher, reminded himself daily, observe constantly that all things take place by change. To him, change wasn't something to be feared. It was the very rhythm of nature. The universe is in constant motion. To resist that motion is to set ourselves against life itself. Stoicism teaches us to accept change with equanimity, not because it's easy, but because resisting it only leads to suffering. When we cling to the past, to who we used to be, or to how we hoped things would go, we trap ourselves in a cycle of grief and frustration. But when we open ourselves to change, we begin to flow with life rather than fight against it. This doesn't mean you don't feel sadness when things end. It means you honor the ending without being consumed by it. You acknowledge the pain of loss, but you don't let it define your identity. You let go, not because you don't care, but because you trust the unfolding of life. Change often arrives disguised as chaos. Sudden job loss, unexpected illness, a betrayal, or a relocation. At first, it feels like a collapse. But time and perspective often reveal it as a redirection, a pruning of what no longer fits, an opportunity to grow into something deeper. The Stoics encourage us to meet change with a flexible mind, rather than a rigid heart. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, said, "It is not that we are given a short life, but we make it short by wasting time. Life is long if you know how to use it." Change reminds us that time is limited, that nothing stays the same, and that every moment matters. Rather than mourn what we've lost, we can celebrate what remains and what's possible. To embrace change with grace is to develop amor fati, the love of fate. It means not just accepting what happens, but loving it, even when it's painful. Why? Because everything that comes your way is fuel for growth, strength, and wisdom. Even the heartbreaks, even the detours, they shape you, they wake you up. One practical way to build this mindset is through daily reflection. Ask yourself, what changed today? What did I resist? What could I accept more fully? The more you train your mind to observe change rather than react to it, the more peace you'll feel, no matter how uncertain life becomes. Another strategy is intentional detachment. Don't tie your happiness to people, outcomes, or possessions. Love them, enjoy them, but remember they are temporary. This mindset doesn't make you cold. It makes you resilient. You can experience life deeply while remaining grounded in something even deeper, your inner stability. Reflection. How much suffering have you carried simply because you resisted what already was? How many sleepless nights have been spent mourning what could no longer be? You can't stop the waves of change, but you can learn to surf them. You can stand rooted in your values even as the ground shifts beneath your feet. That's the Stoic way. Not to freeze the moment, but to meet it with courage, flexibility, and an open heart. Because in the end, it's not change that breaks us. It's our refusal to grow with it. And once you make peace with impermanence, you become truly free. 7. Thinking realistically and objectively, a Stoic approach to mental clarity. In a world dominated by emotional reactions, personal biases, and distorted perceptions, the ability to think realistically and objectively is a rare and powerful trait. It's easy to fall into the trap of wishful thinking or catastrophic imagining, but the Stoics taught that clear, objective thinking is the foundation of a rational and fulfilling life. Without it, we are at the mercy of illusions, trapped in narratives that either flatter us or destroy us. To think realistically doesn't mean being pessimistic. It means seeing things as they truly are, not better, not worse, just as they are. It's stripping away the noise of assumptions, fog of emotions, and the baggage of past wounds, so you can respond to life with wisdom rather than reactivity. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to remove the opinion, because he knew that most of our suffering doesn't come from events themselves. It comes from the meaning we attach to them. Losing a job isn't inherently devastating. A friend's criticism isn't automatically a betrayal. A delay in your plans isn't necessarily a disaster. It's our interpretation that gives these events their emotional weight. Stoicism trains us to separate fact from judgment. The fact is, I failed the exam. The judgment is, I'm stupid and doomed to fail at life. The fact is, she hasn't texted me back. The judgment is, she doesn't care about me anymore. See the difference? One is a neutral reality. The other is a story we tell ourselves. And too often, we believe our stories more than we believe them. Realistic thinking also demands that we examine our expectation. Life isn't fair, and people aren't always kind. Plans fall apart. Mistakes happen. The Stoics weren't surprised by adversity. They expected it. Not in a cynical way, but in a clear-eyed way. By removing unrealistic hopes and preparing mentally for challenges, they stayed grounded even when others fell apart. Objectivity also means recognizing your own role in events. Instead of always blaming others or seeing yourself as a victim, ask, what part did I play in this? What can I learn from it? It's not about guilt, it's about responsibility. It's choosing to grow rather than to blame. This level of honesty requires courage, but it leads to maturity and freedom. Another Stoic practice for developing objective thought is viewing events from a wider lens. Marcus Aurelius would often remind himself of the vastness of the universe and the shortness of life. From the perspective of time and space, most of our current worries shrink. This doesn't mean they don't matter, but it helps us put them in proportion. It helps us breathe again. Modern Stoicism encourages us to challenge our thoughts with questions like, is this thought based on evidence or emotion? Am I jumping to conclusions? Would I see this differently if I weren't so involved? What would I advise a friend in this exact situation? By cultivating this habit of questioning, we gain control over our reactions. We avoid being manipulated by others, by media, or by our own fear. We become calm, clear, and rational. Not cold-hearted, but level-headed. Reflection. Ask yourself, how often do your thoughts reflect reality? Or are they filtered through fear, anger, or ego? Realistic and objective thinking doesn't make you less human. It makes you a stronger human. It allows you to face the truth without flinching, to make decisions based on wisdom rather than whim, and to live with greater peace and purpose. In a world of noise, be the quiet mind that sees clearly. In a culture of exaggeration, be the grounded soul that stays true. That is the Stoic way. That is how we rise above confusion and into clarity. 8. Cultivating personal virtue, the Stoic foundation of true strength. In Stoic philosophy, personal virtue is not just a moral ideal. It is the essence of a well-lived life. For the Stoics, the goal wasn't wealth, fame, or even happiness. It was virtue, the inner excellence of character that allows a person to live in harmony with nature, reason, and their higher self. Without virtue, any external success is hollow. With it, even poverty, illness, or loss can be endured with dignity and peace. The 4 cardinal virtues in Stoicism, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, serve as the compass for human behavior. These aren't abstract ideals, but living principles to be applied daily, especially in moments of difficulty and choice. Wisdom is the ability to discern what is true, what is right, and what is in our control. It means not rushing to judgment, not falling for appearances, and not being led by impulse. A wise person asks before speaking, reflects before acting, and learns from every experience, even failure. Wisdom isn't about how much you know, but how well you live with what you know. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to do the right thing despite fear. It's the choice to stand up for truth, to face pain, and to hold your values firm when they're unpopular. In a world that rewards conformity, Stoic courage means being authentic, even when it costs you something. Justice is the commitment to fairness, respect, and the good of others. A just person doesn't exploit or manipulate. They don't take more than they give. They treat people not as tools or threats, but as fellow travelers. For the Stoics, justice is not just social, it's personal. It means being honest even when no one's watching. Temperance, or self-control, is the art of moderation. It's the ability to say enough when the world says more. It's what keeps desires from turning into addictions, ambition from turning into greed, and strength from becoming tyranny. A temperate person enjoys life, but is not enslaved by it. When you develop these virtues, you build a core that external events can't shake. This is why the Stoics believe that virtue alone is sufficient for happiness. Not the superficial kind, but the deep contentment that comes from living in alignment with your values. Personal virtue is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use. You build wisdom by reflecting on your experiences. You develop courage by doing hard things. You sharpen justice by treating others with empathy and fairness. You practice temperance by setting limits, saying no, and choosing quality over quantity. This Stoic pursuit is not about perfection, but about consistency. It's a daily effort to live with more awareness, more discipline, and more integrity. You won't always get it right, but each day is a new chance to realign. We live in a world obsessed with appearance, followers, fame, filters, but none of that can replace inner character. Virtue is invisible to the eyes, but deeply felt in presence. It radiates in how someone listens, how they stay calm under pressure, how they honor their word, how they treat those who can do nothing for them. Reflection. Ask yourself honestly, am I becoming the kind of person I admire? Do my choices reflect my highest values or just my immediate desires? To live a Stoic life is to choose substance over surface, character over convenience. It is to believe that who you are is more important than what you have, and that the true reward of virtue is not praise, but peace. In uncertain times, virtue is your anchor. In chaotic moments, it is your compass. When everything else is stripped away, it is your only true wealth. So nurture it, protect it, and live by it. Not for others to see, but for your soul to be free. 9. Avoiding distractions and staying focused on your purpose. A Stoic discipline for clarity and direction. In a world designed to hijack our attention, the ability to focus on what truly matters has become a superpower. Notifications ping, headlines scream, opinions flood our mind, and before we know it, hours are lost to meaningless scrolling or reactive thoughts. In this age of noise, the Stoic commitment to purpose-driven focus is more relevant than ever. The Stoics taught that life is short and every moment is precious. Do not waste time, Marcus Aurelius urges in Meditation. Arguing what a good man should be one. This is not just a call to morality. It's a powerful statement about the economy of our attention. Every second we give to distractions is a second we surrender from building a life of meaning and virtue. To live with Stoic clarity is to ask, what am I here for? What deserves my attention, energy, and time? And perhaps more importantly, what doesn't? Distractions aren't just external, they're internal. Often we blame social media or other people for pulling us away from our goal. But the deeper distractions are our own fears, desires, insecurities, and regrets. We lose focus because we don't want to face discomfort. We jump from one thing to the next because staying with the hard work of purpose feels demanding. But growth demands presence. Clarity demands silence. Focus demande discipline. A Stoic doesn't wait for the perfect moment. They create it by removing what is unnecessary. Seneca wrote that being everywhere is being nowhere. When you scatter your mind across 10 things, you master none. When you chase every desire, you fulfill none. To move forward, you must learn to say no, not out of fear or arrogance, but from a deep commitment to your yes. Purpose is not found in the noise of the crowd, but in the stillness of intentional thought. The Stoics valued silence and solitude not as escapes from life, but as essential spaces to return to themselves, to remember their goal, recalibrate their priority, and renew their strength. You don't need to have every detail figured out, but you do need a guiding star, a purpose. It might be as grand as building a business that uplifts your community, or as simple as being a calm and wise presence in a chaotic world. Whatever it is, anchor yourself to it. Let it shape your daily decisions, your time management, and even your digital consumption. Ask yourself each day, is this helping me move toward my purpose or away from it? Is this a wise use of my time or a subtle way to avoid growth? The Stoic mind is not easily swayed by impulse. It observes temptations with detachment. It doesn't panic when others rush. It doesn't chase every opportunity, knowing that some opportunities are just distractions in disguise. This mindset doesn't mean becoming robotic or emotionless. It means becoming deliberate, conscious, and value-driven. Reflection. Are you living on purpose or just reacting to whatever comes next? True focus is not just about productivity. It's about protecting your soul from being scattered. When you live without direction, life becomes a blur of unfinished tasks and forgotten dreams. But when you live with intention, each day adds to something greater than itself. Your purpose is your anchor in the storm, your compass in confusion. Guard it, feed it, let it guide your time, your energy, and your mind. Because in the end, what you focus on is what you become. 10. Practicing simplicity and discipline, the Stoic blueprint for inner freedom. In a society driven by excess and consumption, simplicity and discipline can feel like outdated virtues. We are constantly told that more is better. More success, more stuff, more pleasure, more recognition. But the Stoics saw things differently. For them, the pursuit of a meaningful life was never about accumulation. It was about alignment. And nothing brings you into alignment faster than the practice of simplicity and discipline. Simplicity in Stoicism isn't about living in poverty or rejecting comfort for its own sake. It's about choosing clarity over clutter, essence over appearance, purpose over pleasure. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, lived in a palace but chose to sleep on a simple cot and wear plain clothing. Why? Because he knew that external luxury often distracts from internal strength. He understood that real power lies not in what you own, but in what you can do without. When we simplify, we create space. Space to think, to breathe, to focus. Space to reflect on what actually matters instead of getting lost in the noise of status games and endless wants. Simplicity isn't deprivation, it's liberation. Discipline, on the other hand, is the structure that sustains simplicity. It is the quiet force that allows us to live intentionally instead of reactively. A disciplined person doesn't wake up and hope for the best. They build systems, routines, and habits that reflect their values. They don't eat or speak or act on impulse. They reflect. They choose wisely. The Stoics believed that freedom was not doing whatever you want, but doing what is right, no matter what you feel. That kind of freedom takes training. Epictetus, a former slave-turned-philosopher, often said that philosophy is like a gym for the mind. You show up every day. You lift the weight of your desires, your fears, your laziness, and slowly you build the muscle of character. Practicing simplicity and discipline means saying no to the unnecessary so you can say yes to the essential. It means choosing a simple meal over indulgent because your health matters. It means waking up early to reflect or journal, even when your body wants to sleep in, because your soul needs direction. It means spending time with a few deep relationships rather than spreading yourself thin across superficial ones. This is not an act of self-punishment. It's an act of self-respect. You're training yourself to live well, not just feel good. And while the world may praise the glamorous and the loud, Stoicism teaches us that a quiet, ordered life often holds the greatest depth and peace. Reflection. Ask yourself, what in my life is truly essential? And what is just noise? Where am I lacking discipline? And what is it costing me? Practicing simplicity and discipline may not get you applause, but it will give you something far more valuable: clarity, strength, and peace. You will no longer be ruled by cravings or chaos. You'll know what matters, and you'll have the strength to live it out. And that, in a distracted and overindulgent world, is the ultimate Stoic rebellion. Clear thinking doesn't happen by accident. It's a muscle you train, a discipline you nurture each day. These 10 Stoic strategies aren't just tools for sharpening your thoughts, they're practices for sharpening your life. When your mind becomes clear, your path becomes clear. And from that clarity, wiser choices naturally follow. In the end, the Stoic doesn't seek to be right all the time. They seek to understand. They don't argue to win, but to learn. And in a world of shallow opinions, the one who can think with calm depth becomes truly powerful. These strategies won't make you perfect, but they will make you deliberate. And in the Stoic view, that is where true freedom and true strength begin.